Hello everybody and welcome to another video. We're going to talk about a ability in the new Age of Sigmar 4th edition that is causing a bit of a stir. Should it be FAQ'd? Does it need an FAQ? Is it perfectly fine? Are people reading too much into this? You know what? Let's have a chat about it. That's right. We're going to be talking about a little bit of an issue in regards to this. Now, I am pretty much in the firm thing of raw. I like to read the rules and I like to go, well, that rule says those words. That's what those words mean. Therefore, I can do said thing. There are people who are out there who are arguing about this and saying because it doesn't specifically state that you can't do it. Now, we're going to look at this now, and this is this ability here. Power through. Now, we're going to ignore the fluff text. Just ignore the first paragraph of the fluff text, okay? Just ignore it. It's the end of any turn, okay? We're just going to ignore it. So, we're going to break this down into bits, and we're going to look at the other abilities that cover that, okay? And then we're going to try to work out, does this need FAQ'd, or are people reading too much into it? So first things first, declare. Pick a friendly unit that charged this turn. So that is your first trigger, your first caveat of things that you need to be able to use this ability. You need to pick a friendly unit that charged this turn to use this ability. No other unit, if they didn't charge, they can't use it. So first, they have to have charged. You must then pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. So, you've kind of charged, you haven't killed the unit, okay? And you're still in combat with the target. Or with another target. But either way, you have charged, you've got into combat, you have fought, and you are still in combat. That's number 2. Now, the third part of this is the big one. The target must have a lower health characteristic than the unit using this ability. What does that mean? Well, first things first. If you are a cavalry unit and you have a health characteristic of 3 and that you are targeting a unit of, say, steel helms, I like picking on steel helms because they kind of suck, and they have a characteristic of 1, then you have a higher characteristic than that unit, okay? So you can't be running in and having your steam helms trying to bully other units in combat, because that's not how this rule works, all right? So first things first, straight away, we have three things that we need to have to make this rule work. First, you have to have charged. 2, you need to be in combat. And 3, your unit's health characteristic has to be higher than the target's. Now, straight away, you will also see an issue here that you're not always going to have a higher health characteristic than the target unit. If you're fighting ogres and you're a human, you ain't getting that. If you are an ogre and you're fighting everyone else, and guess what? You're going to get to use this a lot. But let's look at the effect. And this is the part that people are having an issue with. So let's break it down stage by stage, because there's a lot going on in this little paragraph. So the first effect, inflict D3 mortal damage on the target. Doesn't matter what else you do, you're going to re-roll in that D3 and doing some damage. Then, the unit using this ability, so your unit, can make a move characteristic, can move up to its move characteristic. Now, it doesn't say you use a move ability, but it does have the move in a keyword at the bottom, and it also has the move highlighted. Now, it says using this ability can move a distance up to its move characteristic. So it's not telling you you are using a move ability, okay? It's telling you that you can move up to your move characteristic. This is very similar to how the order works for Cities of Sigmar, where it allows you to move in your hero phase up to 3 inches, but not actually use a move ability. This isn't telling you to use a move ability. It's telling you you can move up to a distance to its move characteristic, not you make a move ability up to your maximum move characteristic. Okay? That's the first thing to clarify. Because if it did, there would be a lot of things with the move ability that would counteract what is going on here, such as if you're making a move action, you can't move into or through enemy models' combat ranges. This is also going to apply to fly. Fly ignores all models, it ignores combat ranges, and it ignores terrain. Fly is a passive move ability. Move is a move core action ability. Okay? Neither of these are in effect right now. It is basically a free move that isn't a move ability. It can pass through and end that move within the combat ranges of enemy units that were in combat with it at the start of the move. Okay, this is the sentence that is causing all the problems, because this is where the interpretation and the intention of the rules writers comes into question. So, let's go for the very first part of this sentence. It can pass through. Now, regardless of reading the fluff text at the top, which clearly states what this rule is meant to be, and we can actually go into listening to the numerous interviews that the designers have had, and this rule itself when being used by 2 world champions who wanted to use this rule. This is implying that you can pass through. Pass through means you can move through that unit and end that move within the combat range of enemy units that were in combat with it at the start of the move. So, you're in combat, you're in within a 3-inch range, you're going to be able to move around that 3-inch range, but people are interpreting that you can pass through, i.e. if your models are at the front of the unit, you can move your models to the back of the unit, you can stay inside that combat range of 3 inches, and that's cool. There are other people who are saying that no, you can't, because you can't pass through enemy models. Okay? This is where the FAQ potential comes into this rule. So you either are looking at, you're either on one side of the fence here. You're on the fence of, yes, the rule clearly states pass through, so therefore you can pass through enemy models, so I can move my models from the front of the unit to the back of the unit, because that's what this rule wants me to do, and I can stay with, as long as I stay within combat range of the unit that I started in combat range with. We'll get on to the last bit in a second. Okay? I am not making a move action, therefore, of move ability, therefore I'm under no restrictions of moving through combat ranges. Alright? I don't need the fly keyword because this isn't a move action. There's no move abilities being used. Therefore, fly, which is a passive movement ability, doesn't come into play. Cool. So, we already established that this isn't a proper move. It's kind of like it's a Sigmar move. So, I can pass through. Yes? No? Maybe? That depends on how you interpret that little sentence. Now, the ending is pretty simple. Okay? It does not have to end the move in combat. Right, so I'm in within 3-inch range, okay? Got a unit in front of me. I'm in combat with it. I'm in within 3-inch range. I can move through. I'll move through that combat range, but I don't have to end up in combat with said model, with unit. So what that means essentially is I can move out of that 3-inch combat range using this ability. Now, you could turn around and say that if your unit's big enough and you're at the side of a unit, you could essentially move around the side to the rear and then out the back of the combat range quite easily enough. What people's problem with this rule is the assumption that you can move your models through the unit to the other side. Okay? That's the problem, because you can't move models through enemy units. But this isn't a move ability. This isn't a fly ability. This has nothing to do with movement and core abilities when it comes to, because it isn't a move ability. It is you allowing to move up to your move characteristic. Just like the Cities of Sigmar can move 3 inches and not be counted as using a move ability. Now, I will say that this is probably going to get FAQ'd 100% because of the ambiguity of the pass-through part of the rules. But I will think that the designers are probably going to land on the side of, yes, you can, because I think that's their intention. And I'm going to base that on, 1, the fluff text at the top, 2, every single article that they've talked about this ability, and every single interview they have talked about this ability. Games Workshop's games designers for Age of Sigmar are incredibly proud of this ability. They really like this ability. They like this ability so much that there are some war scrolls in some factions that have passive abilities that buff this command ability, from doing D3 damage to D6 damage, to even increasing the movement of said unit. It's clearly that the design intention of this rule is to be thematic of a larger unit hitting a weaker unit, inflicting damage and smashing their way through that line to pass through them, just like you would have in reality when it comes to a shield wall breaking or a big massive line of infantry just collapsing as cavalry hit it, etc., etc. Now, even the fluff text itself says the warriors use their sheer mass and resilience to drive through a group of weaker foes, leaving broken bodies in their wake. Okay? Driving through them. Now, I would say, and I am firmly in the camp of, regardless of the fluff text, now bear in mind, I would just like to point out that I had not read the fluff text until it was pointed out that the fluff text is clouding people's judgment when it comes to this. I've got nothing to do with the fluff text. I hadn't read it up to that point. But when I first read this rule, and I actually have the video up on the channel, it's about the command abilities. That was pretty much the first time I'd read this rule. I hadn't even read the fluff text. And I even said, as I was reading that rule, that this is kind of like smashing through the lines to get to the weaker part behind. This is how that rule reads to me. You can pass through and end that move within the combat range of enemy units that were in combat at the start. I can move my models from the front of that unit to the rear of that unit, or if I really wanted to, outside of the combat range to the rear of that unit, because I have passed through it. It'll probably get FAQ'd 100%, and I'm sure people will comment on this video saying, Pointy, you're wrong. Now, there is no right or wrong answer right now. That is literally down to your interpretation of how you view that sentence of it can pass through. Now, you may interpret that is meaning the combat radius. Of course, yes, it is. And it also means at the very end that you don't have to end in combat with that unit at the end of this ability. It could mean that you can pass through enemy units. Now, is it well written? No. This is the issue with Games Workshop rule writers a lot of the time. They try to create these thematic rules and they put a lot of stuff in it. Like I said, to trigger this ability to work, you need 3 things straight away. To even do the effect of this rule, you have D3 damage, you have a move, you have combat radiuses, and then you have a combat radius that you may or may not need to be into at the end of it. There's about 4 things going on inside the rule itself. So it's a pretty complex rule. I do agree that a clarification with an FAQ would be welcome, but you can't turn around and tell somebody that they're wrong in how they read that sentence. Just because you read it one way doesn't mean that you are right. You could be wrong. We've had this before with other rules. Decapitate and strike in the old world. People were reading it that added attacks to all of your attacks, and you got a decapitate and strike to all of your attacks. That was clearly not the right intention and not what the rules writers wanted, which resulted in an FAQ saying that no, this literally only applies to this one attack. Okay? pretty much exactly like other games like servo harnesses that literally did the same thing. But people don't read rules for lots of different games, and they only really play one or two. So I will admit that this does need an FAQ, and probably will get an FAQ. So yeah, but like I said, I am in the camp of, yes, it says I can pass through. I am a raw player. That it says it can pass through. It doesn't say that I can't pass through enemy models. It doesn't say that I'm doing a move action. Therefore, I'm not doing a move action. So I'm not beholden by all of the rules for a rules ability, for a move ability. Therefore, I don't need to worry about fly, because that is a passive move ability, and I'm not doing a move ability. I am just doing a free move. Okay? And we have plenty of things in the game right now that shows a precedence of things breaking core abilities, such as the Cities of Sigmar orders and Murder Lust for the Corn, that clearly allows you to make a move ability and move into within the 3-inch range of a combat ability. So there's lots of things in the game that already break these abilities. So is it going to need an FAQ? Probably. We will find out in a few weeks once the game launches. Pre-orders are next week. I would imagine that once that pre-order window is done, because we are probably more than likely going to get the rules this week, because it's leaked and the embargo's lifted, and we're probably going to get all of the factions packs over the space of the week, just like they did with 40k, and we will have this out in the open. I would fully expect the first FAQ to drop 2 weeks after launch. So if the launch is the 13th of July, which I believe it is, I would expect the FAQ to probably drop sometime around the 25th, the 26th of July. That would be about a 2-week period. And that will literally be the first FAQ to fix what we found, because it's 100% guaranteed that once the player base get their hands on this rules and the faction packs, this game will be broken to shit, and every single busted combo that the so-called playtesters have playtested will have missed, and this will be found and will be done. It is guaranteed. 10th edition was exactly the same. 9th edition was before it. 3rd edition was the same for Age of Sigmar. So was 2nd edition. Every single game Games Workshop do when they mention playtesting is always the same. It isn't fully playtested, and if it is, the playtesters aren't given the right information, or the rules designers aren't listening to the playtesters. And this is what always happens. Rules like this is more down to the rules language used by the rules writers. Their intention is a thematic rule, and we know this because of the way they've talked about it and the little blurb at the top of it. So we know what their intention and their vision for this rule is, but it's how they've executed it when it comes to the actual language used in the actual rule itself. All right. One of the things I always learned by designing my own game is basically treat your audience like an idiot and try to make the language as simplistic as possible to not have any ambiguity in it. So that's kind of how you had to write rules. When you write a rule like this that has multiple things going on, lots of little wheels moving to make it work, that can cause issues, because one person might read it one way and another person might read it my other. And this is exactly what's going on. This is not just going on in my local gaming group, it's going on all over the internet. People are confused and don't understand this rule, and they are asking questions, and they are also fighting. Don't fight amongst each other. Don't be a womble and fight amongst each other just because somebody that you play games with has a different interpretation of that sentence to you. Neither of you are correct until we get an official wording from Games Workshop. But you can have your view and your opinion on it. It doesn't matter. It is literally how this works. So don't fight. Don't call each other names. Don't be like, you're getting that wrong, you scrub. Just don't be like that, because that's just stupid. You can have a view on this rule, and I can have a view on this rule, and we might not actually land at the same place. So what is best thing to do is, until we get an FAQ, is if you are at an event, ask a TO, how are you playing it? How are you going to play this? And I will do that right now. My local TO, Pete, if you're watching this video, let me know in the comments exactly how you're going to rule this out at events until we get an FAQ. and we'll go by what you say, because you are the TO, you are the man in charge of events. If you're playing a pickup game with your friend, before you even start the game, ask your opponent, what's your interpretation of this rule, and how do you want to play it? They might have the same viewpoint as you. Yeah, you can pass through models, and then do that. Play the game as that is, and do it in a sensible way. Don't be a dick and then not say anything at the start of the game and then pull it and then go and then have a fight about it later on when you try to do it and they don't agree with you, because that's just not good and it doesn't bring for a good gaming experience. So, okay. But I'm going to stop waffling now about this. Is it going to get FAQ'd? Probably. Should it get FAQ'd? Most definitely. And yeah, so that's it. This is the drama of Age of Sigmar 4th edition. So I will see you all in the next video. There's plenty more. Pre-orders are literally around the corner. Games Workshop, if you are watching this, please send me stuff. Send you an email. Yes, yes, yes. And I haven't got a box yet, so, you know, I will try to get hold of some of the models. If anyone is in my local area has bought the box and has a side that they don't want, I'll try to pick up a couple of them to do some painting stuff with. But as obviously I'm not one of the privileged few that get sent stuff, so no cool selfies from me holding the box, but I can do cool selfies if you want me to. Let me know in the comments if you do. I'm quite photogenic. Look, big manly beard is amazing. 3.5 years of growth. It's been good. But obviously, if you're a beard fan, give me a thumbs up, and I will catch you all in the next one. Most importantly, make sure you definitely subscribe. There's about 85% of my viewers have not subscribed to this channel. Not subscribed. If you all start subscribing rather than just watching, I'll have a far bigger subscription number, and that would be really, really awesome, because I definitely want to hit my goal of 3,500 by the end of the year, and I definitely want to hit 3,000 by the end of this month, and I've only got like a week to go, and I need like 27. Can we get 27 subscribers from this video? Would be really cool if we can. But if not, give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment, and I will see you in the next one, and also check out my members and Patreon area. Love you all. Thank you for the support. Bye-bye.